Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Not Overthinking. We're staying somewhat consistent. I actually got an email the other day. It was like I think it was one of these like cold emails. Let me see if I can find it.
This is actually the second episode we're recording in about 4 days.
Oh,
so
okay. No, I thought this was going to be a snarky email.
Oh, really?
But it's like a marketing-y type email, I think. Hey Ali, have you ever worked or would you want to work with someone whose work outperforms yours? If you search for the word podcast consistency, your podcast on your website appears at number 3. My article for Rumble Studio is currently at number 1, and I'd like to work with your team. Yeah, it's like a content writer.
Okay.
But I saw it rock up on the Apple Watch, and I was like, wait, is he just making a snarky comment about podcast consistency? Turns out he's not. He's just doing an article about like how consistent you should be with your podcast.
Mate, cold emails are getting good these days. I got a cold email yesterday. Yesterday or the day before for a causal cold email. And the subject line was, great job with the comparison columns in your tables. And it basically, in this cold email, this guy's providing like a very sort of specific niche bit of product feedback. Where I saw that and I was like, it's sick, yeah. I think the comparison columns in the tables are really good. I'm glad like someone's finally recognizing this. And then it turned out to be a cold email, but like clearly this guy had got into the product, like looked for some really specific feature that he could comment on. And like I opened the email, shared it with the team as an example of like, hey, this is like a really good cold email. Like I opened this as soon as I saw the notification because I thought it was like a real email. Yeah. And it's getting wild out there.
Yeah, I mean, I've been finding the frequency of cold emails is increasing, but you know, it's still obvious when someone is doing a copy paste job.
Yeah.
And it's like they're really trying hard not to. But it's just kind of obvious. And you can just tell when it's a human writing the email versus someone who's been told. There was a period of like a few weeks where do you follow Charlie Marie on Twitter? It's like the ConvertKit designer or something.
No, I don't
she tweeted about this as well. It's like every day I'd get like 3 emails with a bit of a neg. Basically being like, hey Ollie, I'm not sure if you realize, but the website, the top 3 articles on your website are consistently failing to rank for high value SEO terms. But that's okay, don't worry about it. I've created a free gift for you, and all you have to do is reply to this email and I'll send you the free gift. What do you say? And I was like, someone is clearly doing a course. And it's like a cohort-based course on how to be a marketer or something like that. And they'll just like send all these people emails.
Yeah, it's all about being provocative. Yeah, cold emails are getting good.
Yeah.
I think we're going to get a good thing going on the pod.
Yeah.
2 episodes in 4 days being recorded. I think the one we recorded a few days ago will probably go out this Friday or something,
yes,
right?
That's right.
And then this one will go out next week.
But yeah, how has your last 2 days been?
Last days have been good.
Action points from last time.
My action points were to do half an hour of work after dinner. And what was the other one? Something about waking up?
It was you were going to be at the house by 7:30.
Out of the house by 7:30. Yeah. I think they're doing pretty well. Like, I mean, today we're doing this pod now, and it's like 8 something. So obviously I'm not out of the house, but I think that's fine. Yesterday I had a breakfast at 8:30. Yeah, basically yesterday I had a breakfast at 8:30. On Monday I was out of the. When did we record the episode? Was it Sunday? It was Sunday.
Was it?
Yeah, I think so.
Who knows, mate?
Yeah, it was Sunday. Anyway, so the following day, I was out of the house at 7:30. 7:30, I went to the gym. And yesterday I had a breakfast, so I didn't, well, maybe could have gone to the gym, but I didn't go to the gym. But I was out of the house around 8. And then today we're doing the pod. So that's going okay. And then the working in the evening thing, I didn't do it on Monday, admittedly, but I did do it yesterday. I actually did a bunch of work yesterday evening. And it was really good. It was just, it's probably the most productive, like 45 to 60 minutes of the day. Just like bashing through small tasks and tying up loose ends. It was brilliant.
Nice.
Fantastic.
How does the wife feel about this?
Yeah, she was all right with it yesterday. Yeah, I think she also had a bit. She was doing some internet sleuthing in bed. Nice. On her laptop about how some of the drugs that Sam Bankman-Fried has been taking, they're actually meant for like Parkinson's disease or something, and digging into some of the like side effects about how they increase risk taking and gambling and this kind of stuff.
All that fun stuff.
So yeah, she's on that hype right now.
I like this idea of half an hour of tying up loose ends before bed.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I often have random ass admin tasks that just pile up.
Yeah.
And I never make time in my day to do the random ass admin tasks because it always feels to me like, I can't bother to deal with this right now.
Yeah.
And often that random ask admin task will involve like sending someone a calendar invite for like a lunch or dinner or something I'm supposed to be having, and
Really?
then yeah,
Don't you just do that as soon as the plan is made? Isn't that the time to do it?
I do most of the time. But if it's like an email thread and it's like I kind of have it, I've seen it in the inbox and I kind of know it's a thing, but I just don't want to open it because once I open the email, I feel I have to respond to it then and all this kind of stuff. Yeah.
I actually have a blog post about this from 2016 or 17
Oh yeah.
or 18. It's called High Leverage Housekeeping. You remember this one?
Oh yes, I remember. High leverage housekeeping.
Do you remember the thesis?
The thesis was that it's worth spending some amount of time each week doing what you call high leverage housekeeping, where you go through your calendar, tidy up loose ends and stuff, because it just makes your life, it's actually surprisingly high leverage and makes your life way better or something.
Yeah, I think there was another core insight in the article. Let me just bring it up.
Bring up a blog post from 2016. Was it 2016? You were doing blogs that long ago?
No, I think
I started
it was
blogging in 2016.
I think it might have been 2018. Wow, when I searched high leverage housekeeping, the first two results are from aliabdaal.com, where you've literally high leverage housekeeping, aliabdaal.com, high leverage housekeeping, how to unclutter your space.
Oh, cute.
And then the third result is my blog post about it. What the hell is this, bro?
I don't know, man. Like SEO or something.
To be fair, in the article you do say that, oh, my brother Timur like told me about this thing. All right, so I'm gonna go to the OC. All right.
Oh, okay. Oh, this is interesting. Yeah. Okay, I have some thoughts on this from the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Ah, really? Yeah, so I think the first, as I say in here, the first order effects of high leverage housekeeping are really obvious. You do the housekeeping, your workspaces, digital and physical, are tidy, and it lets you work more efficiently, like the next time when you need to do the work. So like in Notion, if you categorizing a bunch of random stuff that was just lying around, or like archiving all those emails that had piled up and were stopping you from being able to see the important ones, or like, reorganizing your Figma workspace or whatever. So the first order effects are pretty obvious. It kind of reduces friction, physical and cognitive. Cognitive friction's a big one. Cognitive friction.
Nice. I love it. What a word.
That's another one of mine.
Cognitive friction.
Yeah. Take that.
Something that Huberman says is limbic friction.
Limbic friction?
Yeah. It's like emotional friction.
And then the second order effects of high leverage housekeeping, it's a bit like when you're driving a car, you're like driving a car at night or something. The driving of the car keeps sort of a small part of your brain occupied, and it keeps your hands occupied and stuff. And it kind of frees the rest of your mind to just think about random things. And high leverage housekeeping is similar, where you're just kind of like tidying up all these little work related things, and it kind of frees up your mind to think more high level about these work related things, and like spark off ideas and things like that. Similar to how you get your best ideas in the shower, or like when you're just out on a walk or whatever. So yeah, I think that was one of the insights of like, hey, if you are doing these menial tasks that are related to your work, then you will have some good, interesting ideas and thoughts related to your work. So that was, when did this? It's actually from 2019, to be fair.
2019.
Yeah.
Nice. That's solid.
Yeah.
So you do your high leverage housekeeping in the evenings?
I did it once.
Yeah, nice. Since 2019.
Yeah. Anyway, the thing I want to talk about today, I want to talk about psyops and idioms.
Okay. Right. Psyops and idioms.
That's the title. That's the title.
Okay. Okay, cool.
All right.
Go for it.
I think one of the core psyops du jour of the day.
What is a psyop?
It's a psychological operation. We've talked about psyops, man.
We have. Most listeners have not listened to every single episode.
A psyop.
I feel like it's a fairly, like, most people I know wouldn't know what a psyop is. So,
a psyop is basically when you are trying to be tricked psychologically by the power, when the powers that be are trying to trick you psychologically into doing something that is not in your interests.
Okay.
And you don't notice it because it's a psyop. Because it's like
Consumerism is a psyop.
yeah. I mean, I
Or
think consumerism. I think yeah, sure. Like consumerism is a psyop. You know, could be a psyop. I think psyop is something a bit less. You know, consumerism is this like broad general
pervasive
thing that's
type
just
thing.
like been increasing, right? You know, it's similar, but cyber is something a bit more constrained and a bit more direct and overtly opping you.
Okay, such
So-
as like is this from like the 50s or something when the CIA would do stuff in the Cold War?
Yeah. That's where it originates. So on the Wikipedia page, psychological operations in brackets psyop are operations to convey selected information and indicators to audiences to influence their emotions, motives, and objective reasoning, and ultimately the behavior of governments, organizations, groups, and individuals.
Okay, fine. Psychological operations are and this is sort of like deliberate things that the powers that be are trying to do.
Yeah. So it originates in the kind of like military, where like the military, you know, if you want to get some people to do what you want, you know, it's kind of like Inception or whatever. Instead of like forcing them to do what you want, you like trick them into
Plant an idea and then
play.
play.
Yeah.
And then they think it's their idea that they did the thing.
Yeah. Okay. Just to give you some examples. I've just searched psyop on Twitter, and I'll just read out some of the top examples just so you have a sense of like, okay, the top one that's come up, this from 2 days ago. The dad bod trend is a joint beta male plus feminist psyop to destroy the world.
Oh wow. Okay. Do you want to talk about that one?
No, I'm not that interested in that one. But like, it kind of gives you a sense of like, this person is basically saying this whole like, you know, dad bod thing is sort of manufactured by people who presumably this person thinks you don't want to be like beta males and feminists to like get you to do this thing, which is actually not good for you and not good for the world. So that's psyop. Autism Capital related to, about FTX and Sam Bankman-Fried says, at this point, saying all this is an Illuminati deep state, CIA, CCP, Mossad, Fed honeypot psyop is actually a legitimate possibility. So that this whole like Sam Bankman-Fried is like, puppet of the CIA or the CCP or
Yeah.
Mossad.
Just like on that note, I was reading on. I didn't spend a lot of time on Twitter yesterday, but it seemed like there was all sorts of stuff that was surfacing about like Sam's parents and his aunts and how they're connected to like the intelligentsia at like MIT and Stanford and like the World Bank and the SEC and all of this,
Mate.
like
Yeah.
the network effect.
Yeah. Let me read one more side tweet and then I'll read you a tweet related to that.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, so someone tweeted. Okay, so it looks like this 20-year-old woman tweeted this. And it's a picture of her at the COP27 UN climate change conference or something. Okay.
Oh yeah, I've been seeing that. I was like, what
And
the hell
she-
is COP27?
Yeah. So she tweeted, I'm 20 years old and I'm the youngest person to ever be an official United Nations advisor. Gen Z is finally at the decision-making table. Flex emoji. All right, so she tweeted that. That got 20,000 likes. Someone quote tweeted that saying, latest psyop just dropped. I think they're basically implying that this is a psyop by the powers that be to make Gen Z think that they are at the decision-making table. So, there's some examples of psyops. Okay, now, before we carry on with the psyops and the specific psyop I want to talk about today, let me share a tweet related to what you just said.
Certainly.
If you thought the FTX saga was bad, the New York Times puff piece. Okay, basically, the New York Times did this like ridiculous puff piece 2 days ago or yesterday.
What was going on? I haven't read the piece,
So
but
weird,
people have been
man.
talking about it.
It basically said absolutely nothing. It was weirdly focused on, like, there's some quote from SBF about like how, yeah, you'd think I'm not getting any sleep, but I'm actually getting some sleep. Something like this, and like basically it was like zero journalism. It was just like a few like, I don't know, trivial quotes from SBF and a bunch of fluff that was kind of trying to water down the whole situation.
Yeah.
Like, not once did it address any allegations of fraud or stealing people's money. It just didn't touch on any of these things. And so because, the New York Times is one of the core sort of instigators of psyops, where like, if one of the higher powers wants to do a psyop, the New York Times is like partly how they can influence the masses. And so Here's a tweet from a chap called Stevie Graham, who's a pretty good and interesting follow. I'll read you another tweet of his in a sec. He said, if you thought the FTX saga was bad, the New York Times puff piece should tell you it's worse than you can possibly imagine. The deep state mouthpiece, i.e. the New York Times, the deep state mouthpiece, is only that positive when covering up something incredibly bad, e.g. Jeffrey Epstein. The most insane conspiracy theories are probably true. And it's so true because, like, the New York Times hates the tech industry. Like, the New York Times loves to dunk on the tech industry. If anyone in tech who's vaguely notable does anything remotely, whatever, the New York Times loves writing hit pieces on tech founders. Okay. And this guy who's like, as tech crypto bro as you can get, they're writing this positive, kind of low-key positive piece while all this shit is going down. It's just insane. So clearly someone has an agenda. Strings are trying to be pulled somewhere to distract, to cover up, whatever it might be. Like, this is extremely weird.
Man, the government.
Yeah, the deep state mouthpiece.
Deep state, like I've not heard that phrase before. What is that?
I don't know. I think
just getting at like the influence of the state.
Yeah, just like the slimy tentacles of the government,
Yeah. We're going to release our interview with a chap called Iman Gadzi on the Deep Dive podcast at some point.
Is he a deep state operative?
He's very anti-deep state operative.
Nice.
He likes to expose the fact that deep state exists.
Yeah. Okay, so that was one Stevie Graham tweet. I'll just read you another Stevie Graham tweet.
Please. This is
just
great.
For reasons. Yeah, this because
this podcast could just be like you cluing me in on Twitter.
Yeah, this next Stevie Graham tweet I'm going to read you. It backs up a point I made on the podcast probably like a year ago, which you disagreed with me on, but I think you'll probably agree now. All right, he goes, Stevie tweets, for context, Stevie is founder of some tech startup. He tweets, a founder CEO friend of mine stopped going to the gym because he couldn't justify the 2 hours out of his day. The reality is, everyone treats you differently when you're a tank. You're going to get way more ROI out of the rest of your day if you're a unit. 2 hours is a bargain. This is exactly what I was telling you about a year ago. I was saying, like, look, man, society treats you differently as a dude if you're a little bit ripped or a little bit hench. And this is the point he's making.
I don't think I was disagreeing with that.
You were, man. I was like, oh, who's going to treat you? I think people are going to treat you differently. Like, I think you passed the threshold, man, or something like this.
Okay, fine. Yeah, I was fine. Yeah, but now Graham Stefan agreed with you.
Stevie Graham.
Stevie Graham, sorry.
Yeah, they got like 2,000 likes. I loved it. I sent it around.
So you're going to become a unit.
Yeah, I mean...
Speaking of being a unit, I had my first personal trainer session on last Friday. So 2 days before we recorded the last episode.
Yeah.
And I'm still wrecked from it.
Mate.
And
Nice.
like my hip flexors are completely wrecked.
When was the last time you went to the gym before that, though?
Oh, like ages ago. It's like this is the first time I've done deadlifts in about a year.
Really?
So I've got another session with a PT today. I'm going to be like, Rohan, mate, like you've destroyed me.
Is he a unit?
He's a unit. Yeah. I want to be a unit like him. Anyway,
so I'll just read you a couple of replies to this tweet before we get back onto PsyOps and the specifics.
Yeah.
So he's basically saying, like, the CEO friend of mine is an idiot for stopping gym for 2 hours a day because actually it's very high ROI because everyone treats you better when you're a unit. Someone replies, why does he need 2 hours though? Is that factoring travel or something? Stevie goes, including journey, some cardio warm up, weight session, sauna, and getting ready afterwards.
Yeah, that's reasonable here.
And then and then someone replies, someone replies in quotation marks, I don't go to the gym because I don't have enough time to sauna after. And then writes cope. Cope is like a really funny term. It's basically like when you think someone's deceiving themselves to try and like, it's a cope, right? It's like saying like, oh, I don't have time to go to the gym because like it's a cope.
I don't have time to go to the sauna afterwards.
Yeah.
Nice.
All right. Anyway, all right. So we've established what a psyop is. We've read out some examples. The specific psyop that's on my mind is the psyop of sleep. I feel like there's a lot of narratives, a lot of people trying to get me to sleep more.
Oh, deep state tentacles. They just want you switched off for 8 hours of the day, so you can't like rise up and rebel against them.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why Matthew Walker wrote "Why We Sleep."
Okay, no, but look, the sleep thing, it's way. I think we've gone too far, man. I think we've gone too far. I think it's become a mind virus for lots of people, where they're obsessed with this 8 hours of sleep thing, and if they wake up and they only got 7.5 hours, the mind, the virus in the mind is gonna like.
Speaking of anyone,
not specifically. I'm not talking about Lucy. I'm actually.
Who's the only other person that you have like access to the sleeping habits of? It's like, oh man, sleep is such a psyop. It's a mind virus.
Yeah, it's like, I think it's been taken too far. I think people are getting sort of too caught up in it, and I'm starting to see some things about the dangers of sleeping too much. And a lot of the stuff in Why We Sleep was allegedly debunked. Obviously, I haven't read the debunking articles, but I read the headline, and so now I don't believe any of it.
Yeah, we need to get Alex Guzzi on the pod.
Alexi Guzzi.
Yeah, he's the guy.
Oh yeah, dude, he's sick.
Yeah, apparently he's really interesting.
Yeah. I've read his blog a bunch of times. Yeah, all the stuff he's.
But you haven't read his debunking of Why We Sleep.
No.
Okay, fair. Yeah, I need to get him on the pod.
So you have no insider knowledge about like
The psyop of sleep.
the psyop of sleep.
Despite having been a junior doctor in the National Health Service, I don't have. I don't think there's like a deep state conspiracy going on here. I do kind of agree, and I've long been saying this to my mates at uni, because sometimes people would ask me, be like, oh, what time did you get to sleep? And I'm like, occasionally I'd say, I don't know, I didn't look at the time, because I know that if I looked at the time, I would be able to convince myself that I didn't sleep enough, and then I would naturally have a worse day the following day.
Right.
I think at some point I said, oh, sleep's mostly psychological anyway, and people were just like, come on.
We're good, man.
Yeah.
Who read the science?
Yeah, I think there's definitely something there. I think the obsession with the whole like, oh, I need to get my 8 hours, otherwise I suffer, is probably not true for most people, and a lot of it is psychological. But just because it's psychological doesn't mean it's not true. And I remember when with a friend of ours, who shall remain unnamed, at university, she would often say, oh, I really need like 9-10 hours, otherwise I can't function. And all the rest of us bros would be like, dude, come on, like this is a mind virus, or equivalent.
This is a psyop, man.
Yeah, exactly. And then she actually did a kind of a sleep study at the hospital, where they attach electrodes to you and they observe your sleeping patterns and stuff. And they were like, yeah, you're one of the few people that needs like 10 hours a night.
Oh, damn.
And so then she felt very vindicated, and the rest of us felt like,
the deep state told her she needs to be sleeping more. Yeah, of course they bloody did.
Yeah, she's quite like rebellious as well, so they wanted to keep her downtrodden. I kind of had that this morning. Like, I woke up, I slept at like midnight, which is unusual. I had to drop someone home. Slept at midnight, and I was like, we've got this podcast at 8. Anyway, so I woke up. Weirdly, I've been randomly waking up like 7 hours into my sleep to need to do a wee, which is random.
Really?
Because like when you're under the age of 50, you're not supposed to wake up in the night to go to the toilet, and yet I woke up in the night to go to the toilet. So this is a bit concerning. But B, I got up at like 6:50. I was like, oh, I've only had 7 hours of sleep or something. I was like, oh, I'm going to sleep some more. And then I kind of realized, no, I don't need to sleep more. I could just get up and have a shower, and then I just feel way better.
Yeah, exactly.
And a lot of the whole like 8 hours thing is like sleeping 4 full sleep cycles is like way better than sleeping 4 and like a quarter sleep cycle where you wake up feeling groggy and stuff, even though you might technically have like passed the 8 hour threshold or the 7.5 hour threshold. So I think there's definitely something there.
Yeah.
Bit of a psyop.
Yeah, I think it's a psyop because I think, here's the thing. Right, here's the thing.
They don't want you to wake up early.
I think it like, for example, like the last sort of week to 10 days, I've been waking up between 6:30 and 7, regardless of what time I've been sleeping, right? And this is, I mean, even if you want to get your sleep in order, this is the best. The best advice is like, hey,
just wake up at the same time.
You just wake up at the same time, right?
Yeah.
None of this like, oh no, but I slept late, whatever. Just you take it for a few days and start sleeping early, but you have to wake up at the same time.
Yeah.
And so I've been waking up between 6:30 and 7. I'd say like, I don't think there's been any nights in the last, since I've been doing this, that I've actually gotten a full 8 hours sleep. Okay. Like it's probably like 7 hours on average.
Cool.
And like, I'm someone who, would otherwise, have felt like, I need like 8 hours sleep. Like, I like my sleep. I feel very bad after if I don't get enough sleep. I'm someone like that. And despite doing this like 7 hours thing, it's just been fine. I mean, the only thing I've noticed, I mean, people think about the sleep thing in a very one-dimensional way of sleep being this non-negotiable for like well-being or something.
I mean,
and like to some extent
it kind of is. It's,
yeah.
it's the single best high-performance drug that we have.
Yeah.
So.
To some, well, that's going to Matthew Walker, who's been debunked.
It's not. It's also not according to. It's not only according to Matthew Walker.
Who else is it?
It's also according to the founders of 8 Sleep, who I interviewed on my podcast, which is why you should buy their $2,000 mattress, which is actually quite good. But that aside,
dude.
I heard it when I said it.
Okay, look. The point I'm making is, I think for me, and I think for a lot of people, I think there's a danger of treating things as non-negotiables when they're not in fact non-negotiables.
Okay.
Right?
Sure.
And if you have like 2 or 3 non-negotiables in your day, for example, a non-negotiable might be, I have to be at the office at 9, right? And that is likely a non-negotiable. If that's your job, you have to be in the office at 9, right? Or it might just be a non-negotiable in your head of like, oh, I need to like start work at 9, like whatever, like you've just like made this rule, and that's fine. Like, probably a good idea actually. If you have a non-negotiable like that, and you have a non-negotiable about 8 hours sleep, you are potentially overvaluing that like 30 to 60 minutes of like extra sleep you can get in the morning. Like I can only speak for myself here, but for me, like I do quite like sleep, but me getting 7 hours, waking up an hour earlier, having time in the morning to do my freaking physio exercises and, read some book and sit down with a coffee and, just like get my mind together. That 1 hour and getting 7 hours sleep is far more valuable than me getting 8 hours sleep and I do have a somewhat non-negotiable. Well, I mean, today I'm happy to negotiate on it, but like I do like to be in the office at 9. Like it is way better for me to do that and like get slightly less sleep, start the day like properly, get into the office like mindfully, etc.,
Sure.
than it is for me to get an extra hour's sleep, be like, oh no, I have to go into the office. I don't have time for like my whatever, and like you just gotta rush to the office, right? Yeah. So I think like that extra hour in the morning, you can actually do some pretty good stuff. Sets you up for the day nicely. The only downside I've noticed is that I do reach this kind of exhaustion period around like 6 or 7 p.m., which isn't crazy. Like, it's the evening, bro. And then, I kind of have this feeling of exhaustion for like 30 to 60 minutes. And then it kind of just goes away. And then like, I get reasonably early nights, but whatever stuff comes up. And then maybe I get like 7 hours, 7.5 hours. Anyway, my point is, yes, sleep is important, but doing something useful for 30, 60 minutes before you start your day is important and valuable as well. And might even be more valuable for you as an individual than getting that extra 30 to 60 minutes of sleep because you're in the psyop. What do you reckon?
So,
for example, okay, I'll read you another tweet.
Exhibit B.
This is a tweet from Sydney Battle. She says, horrible news. Been starting my days with 20 to 30 minutes of light yoga, and unfortunately, it really makes a difference mentally and physically. I'm so sorry. So she's basically saying that, like, you kind of like, there's a lot of stuff saying like, oh, you should like do this yoga thing, exercise, this is how you be happy. And I think we like to think that advice is fake because we don't want to do all that. We don't want to do the work. But she's basically saying that, like, yeah, sorry everyone, that is actually that it works. That's how you do it.
Okay, so on the sleep thing, I think if you actually got 8 hours of sleep a night, and also did your
of course that would be better. Of course that would be better.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I guess what you're saying is that you would rather wake up a bit earlier so as not to have to rush in the morning, and so as to be able to do your nice little morning routine.
Yeah.
And for you, that like hour of morning routine is more important than the difference between 7 hours and 8 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
I think that's very reasonable. But I think like, so I've interviewed a bunch of like sleep researchers and stuff on the other pod recently. And I always asked like, what's the deal with 8 hours? I always like 8 hours is not a magic number. For most people, it's somewhere between like 7 and 9. Like we know that reliably, if you get like 6, it's probably bad for you. And there's very, very, very few people, like it's like 0.1% of the population that has the gene that means they only need like 4. So that's probably not you. And like 7 to 9, probably reasonable. Go with what you feel. In your case, you're like, you know what? Closer to 7 hours is actually very reasonable. You do have to have this like period of exhaustion in the evenings, you say. So maybe that suggests maybe you're not quite getting enough sleep. And I would suggest probably that like sleeping an hour earlier is just going to be way better for your life.
Yeah, obviously, yeah. And I do try and do that, yeah.
Okay. But no, sure. Broadly, I buy the idea that like waking up a little bit early for the sake of being able to do other things that you like in the morning.
Yeah.
Probably on the margin is slightly better. But of course, being able to sleep early, like sleeping early is the ultimate hack.
Yeah.
Because if you can sleep early, get your 8 hours of sleep, and wake up, and then also do your stuff,
yeah,
it's just high performance drug.
So yeah, I'd encourage listeners to stay woke about the sleep psyop.
Nice.
And not buy into the narrative too much. Obviously, you do need sleep, but like, dude, there's also accounts on Twitter from people about how they were bought into the psyop, and then at some point they just switched to just sleeping 7 or 6 hours. And they've been absolutely fine. And they've just like
this is the equivalent of, I've been smoking for 10 years and I haven't got cancer yet. Like a lot of the issues with kind of chronic sleep debt come about like years afterwards. It's not like immediately I feel better type thing. You can medicate yourself with coffee and with selegiline and whatever else you want to, and it's also not a case of I feel fine. Like similarly with hydration, it's like you probably don't drink enough water. Most people listening to this probably don't drink enough water. If you look at your wee-wee when you go for a wee-wee, it should be basically colorless.
Yeah.
If it's not, that means you're somewhat dehydrated. And on the various studies that they've done about this, you can not know that you're dehydrated. But if you look at your performance on like mental tests and stuff, you see a noticeable decrease based on dehydration status. Someone will be like, you know what? It's such a psyop. It's 2 liters of water a day. Like, when have I ever gotten 2 liters of water a day? I feel totally fine. It's like, how did the government just convince us that we need to have like it's because they put iodine in the water, that's why, or whatever, because they do put iodine in the water. Yeah. But actually, 2 liters of water a day is like actually really helpful.
All right, okay, fine. It might not be that much of a psyop, but I think it's a bit of a psyop.
Cool. So the psyops and idioms.
Idioms, yes.
Although, should we call it like it's 9 o'clock now? You were doing your poo for like a long time.
I was, yeah. It was.
I wonder if partly what we do is that we actually cap the podcasts.
What do you mean?
If, for example, we said that the podcast is 8 till 9, and if we start late, we still finish at 9, because what we don't want is for it to, like, I think in terms of like the staying consistent over the long term, having it run over and then like
mess up the rest of the day
is probably not ideal.
Okay, fine.
So
we can talk about idioms next time. I'll do some. That's kind of a wider theory that's been brewing.
Nice.
So I'll do some more.
I've got so many unreads on Slack. Cool.
All right. Well, we'll be recording another one in a week's time.
Yeah.
Thank you everyone for listening.
I actually think people would prefer it if we just did more frequent episodes, but that was just short.
Yeah. I think so. Yeah.
Oh, SBF just tweeted truth and beauty.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I gave that a like.
Nice. Love it. And we will be continuing to. You see the picture with Elon?
Yeah, with Rahul Ligma and Daniel Johnson. Yeah.
Welcome back, Ligma and Johnson. Anyway.
All right, we'll wrap things up. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll talk about idioms next time.
Cool. See you later.